Welcome to part 12 of the ongoing AS and A-level Java series. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at the switch case statement, which is basically an alternate way to make decisions. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and declare a main method. And inside of the main method, we haven't really used the character data type. So maybe let's declare a character called grade. And what we are going to do is we are going to say grade equal to let's put A maybe for starters. So now in order for you to create the switch statement is you are going to have actually let me just type it so that you can actually see the whole thing in action. So you are going to have a switch, the keyword switch. Then you are going to have you are going to need to pass in a value. Typically the value that you pass in there is an identifier that you would have declared earlier on. Then inside of after putting up that value, you can then have you can then begin the body of the switch statement. Right, so in this case the value that we've passed is grade, right? So you need to check if a particular grade is okay. Maybe what I can do actually, let's just change it to maybe let's use an integer, I think. So integer, let's say score, and let's say score is 100, right? Then instead of passing grade right here, let me just pass score. Then maybe I can just get rid of character for now. I know I wanted us to use the character because we haven't used it before, but I think it's not really the ideal data type for this particular demonstration. So we want to switch score. So in the case whereby score is 100, we are going to do something. So what we are going to do is we are going to say system.out.println, and we say you got an A star, right? Then we put a break right there. Then we have move on to case, maybe say somebody gets 70. We are simply going to repeat what we did in the first scenario, in the previous example there. So system.out, you got what is it? That's a B, is it? Yeah, you got a B. Then maybe case, let's just end on sickest here, right? Then what we can do is when system.out.println, then we say you got a C, right? And then maybe let's also put a default, because the structure of a switch case statement is that there's supposed to be a default. Then we simply want to say you failed, right? So that's just about it. So let's just go ahead and run the code and see what's going on. So you realize that when we run the code, we are getting this you got an A, right? So this is how a switch statement works. You have a value that you pass inside of switch, and we call that the test value, is it? So in this case, we want to test score, which is of type integer, right? So the value that you pass within the switch parenthesis right here should now be the basis of your case statement. So basically you want to switch, right, and test different cases, or something that we call test cases. So the value that you pass in here is going to be tested according to the cases that you define in this case, right? So we have a case whereby the value is 100. Then we do something that pertains to that particular value. If the value is 70, we want to print that somebody got a B. If it is 60, we do that, and so forth and so on. Then ultimately, a switch statement should have something that's called a default case. So the default case, we can draw a parallel to the if-else statement, right? If something is true, right, the first statement is going to be run. Otherwise, if it is false, it's going to run the else statement. So this is basically the same case with what? With the switch statement. So you have switch, then you have test cases, right? So basically, you can think of this as if, else if, then finally you have an else statement at the end. So this is basically the default condition, whereby if we do not satisfy, or if we do not get any values that are true in this case, right, we want to have a default value that's going to be printed, or something that is an action that is going to be performed in the event that we do not satisfy any of the test cases. So that's how an if a switch case statement works. So let me just run the code one more time, right? And you see that we are still getting, you have got an A star. Then maybe let me change the value of score from 100 to maybe, say, let me put C60, and I want you to notice what's going to happen. So if I run that, as you'd expect, you see that we are being told that we got a C right here, is it? So basically, it's going to check if the case is 100, and it knows that the case, remember, the case, it's based on the value that you would have put inside of the switch parenthesis right there. So we are testing score, right? So if score is 100, if score was 100, it was going to print this, but it's not, so it's going to skip. If score was 70, it was going to run this code, but again, it's not 70, so it's going to skip. But then the test case matched this one, this score right here of 60, so it means that we are going to run this code, right? What if we put a value that is not inside of the test cases? What's going to happen? Let's actually see that in action. So what's going to happen is that it's going to print you failed right there at the end, is it? So basically, all these statements, or all these test cases, yielded a false. So what it does is that it's going to jump to the default, which is basically sort of like a fail-safe, as it were, right? Because none of these scenarios satisfied the value of the given values of either 170 or 60, because our value is 25. So it's going to run the default, is it? And if you see here, the default is just the keyword default. There's no value that we are putting there, right? So this is going to be the default case. And then it's important to mention that I mentioned that the switch case statement, it makes use of this break keyword. Again, we shall see this keyword later on when you start doing loops, but the break keyword simply tells the switch case statement to not execute the statements in succession. Maybe it's best demonstrated with an example. So let me just comment out this break, and I'll comment out this break, right? Then maybe comment out this break as well. Then I'll come back here and I'll put a value of 100. Then we'll run the code. I want you to notice what's going to happen. So I want you to see that it's going to print out it's going to run every statement within each case, is it? So in the case that score is 100, yes, and in the case that the score is 100, right, it's going to print this statement, or run this, execute this statement. But because we are missing the break keyword right there, it's not going to end there, but it's actually going to do something that's called falling through, is it? That's falling through. So it's just going to fall through, or execute all the statements underneath all the test cases, even the one that is beneath the default, right? It's also going to be executed. So that's something that you always need to take care of whenever you are using a switch case statement. If you do not break, you are going to have fall through. So that's important to realize. So now that I've uncommented out our breaks, just gonna run it one more time, and you see that we got an A star. And so that's how the switch case statement works. It's also important to know that you can also make use of the switch case with characters. You can also make use of the switch case with doubles, right? Yeah. Then one thing I should mention, I don't think the switch case statement works with object types, is it? Because objects, they are reference types, they are not really primitive types. So you can make use of a switch statement with objects. So that's one thing that you always need to take care of. whenever you want to test for objects, always make sure that you make use of an if-else statement, because a switch statement is not going to work for objects. So I think that's just about it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.